Yeah, g'day YouTubers. Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. We're just playing around with skip chains, and it's very interesting because you've got semi-skip, you've got full skip, and you've also got hyper skip ripping chains. And they're really interesting. One of my mates was playing around with the Panther hyper ripping chain. You got 2 teeth for every drive links. And he's also got a Oregon 27RX. That's a 60-inch bar, and there's only 26 teeth. So you have 2 teeth for every 10 drive links. And he's using that on a MS 880 mil. And even though that it cuts really smooth, it gives a slightly rougher finish. So there's a lot of people using them for that. Now, I was just playing around. I thought, I wonder what it's like if I get rid of 30% of the teeth. This is on a little MS 181. So I just thought, I'm just playing around, just to see what it did. And while it actually felt quite smooth and it gave reasonable results, it was probably a waste of time, but it actually works really good on soft timber. It doesn't really work that good on hard timber. And I guess that's one of the things when you're playing around with skip chains and you're changing the bar and everything else. It really depends on the type of wood that you cut, the type of grain that the wood's got, whether you use a semi-chisel, whether you use a full chisel, whether you use a semi-skip or a full skip. If you're using a full skip chain, there's 30% less teeth. But have a look at the hyper skip. The hyper skip is unbelievable. 2 teeth and then 10 drive links. 2 teeth, then 10 drive links. What a huge gap. Massive gap. But because the chain spins so high and so fast, remember, putting that on an MS 880, it's still got a lot of cutting power because you've got less teeth. It might be a bit slower. And in the test that I'm going to do, I'm going to do 3 tests. I'm going to use a skip chain, 050 gauge. I'm going to cut a little bit of ironbark and a little bit of grey box, and we'll see what happens and see what the results are like. Okay, so what we're going to do is test the skip chain. We'll do a couple of cuts and we'll see how it goes. I just warmed the saw up and I made some cuts then. I really don't notice any vibration difference between this and the other chain, but what I'm going to do is just do about 2 cuts, swap the chain back over, which is exactly the same chain, but you've got an extra 4 teeth either side. So cutting those, it seemed to perform well, but we'll put a stopwatch on it and we'll see the difference. Yeah, well, in that last cut, I took my hand off where the chain brake is deliberately. I wanted to check for vibrations. Anyway, it worked fine. Now remember, this is a little tiny saw. This is really hardwood, real hardwood, and I've got even harder wood. So what I will do is put in, this is one of the hardest woods in Australia. It's called grey box. And typically, I probably don't use this saw to cut ones that big, but we'll give it a go anyway. guess the stopwatch is going to sort of tell us how good that performed. I took my hand off again. There's a little tiny bit of vibration, but nothing that bothers me. So we'll try it on the other chain, which is exactly the same, except it's not skip, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I swapped the chain over. It's exactly the same chain, and there's no skip in it. So I want to check it for vibration to see whether it's roughly about the same, and we'll see if it cut any different or whether this was just a total waste of time. Well, that definitely felt slower to me, so definitely I think the first chain kicks its ass, so we'll try it on the ironbark. Definitely cut easier through the ironbark, because that ironbark's not that old, but the grey box, that's this one here, that's been drying out for over a year, and it's a lot tougher. So I'm 99% sure once I put the stopwatch on that you'll find out that the skip chain performed better on really hard wood, which is that grey box there. Not a big deal of difference on the ironbark. The ironbark was definitely softer, so that's interesting. So, but certainly I was surprised at how tough the grey box was. So I guess we'll look at the stats and see whether this was all worth the time and effort, or it's a total waste of time. Okay, so we've got some specifications there, and what I'm going to do is that I put the original 16-inch bar on. I've got a brand new semi-chisel chain, so this is 043 gauge. This is the original bar, and this is a brand new chain, 043 gauge. So it's going to be really interesting to see in the grey box if the 043 gauge is slower. I brought a 100-foot roll of 050 gauge. So I hope I made the right decision, so let's see. Want to warm the saw up a little bit, so the first cut will just be a warm up. Seems to be a bit slower, but I guess we'll find out on this one. So we'll do about 2 cuts and put the stopwatch on it. Well, I think it might be slower, but the saw doesn't bog down as much. I tried to bog it down a bit, and definitely the 043 gauge is much better. So it'd be interesting to see what the time is. So it might have been a mistake putting the 050 gauge up. It may actually cut faster, but it bogs down, so there's more stress on the saw running the larger gauge. Anyway, we'll find out what the time says. Okay, so the results were interesting. Now, it's only a small saw, so I didn't expect much, but I thought I'll just play around and try it and see what happens. So on the first test, we did the skip chain with 050 gauge, and we removed, it's 53 drive links, and there's 14 cutters on one side and 13 on the other. So we removed 4. And on the iron bark, we had an average of 10 seconds. We had a few cuts. And on the grey box, which is a lot harder, it took 13.5 seconds. So that's on a skip chain, 050 gauge. Then we put the standard full chisel on. Exactly the same thing, 050 gauge. 14.5 seconds on the grey box and 7.5 on the iron bark. So it really, the skip didn't work on the iron bark, but it worked a little bit better on the grey box. And then we decided to put the original bar back on, which was 043 gauge, but I thought I'll use semi-chisel. And it was 13.2 seconds. Now, 13.2 seconds is actually better than the skip chain and the full chisel. But remember, that was 050 gauge. So the 043 gauge, and I tried to bog it down a little bit, the 043 gauge, and it didn't bog down. It was actually quite good. So it was a total waste of time putting the 050 gauge full chisel. The semi-chisel actually beat it. So that's just interesting. So you're wasting your time playing around with skip chains and playing around changing the gauge from 043 to 050 on small chainsaws. Anything to do with small chainsaws, you're just wasting your time. Don't make the bar longer, don't change the gauge, won't do anything. Once you start to get around about 60 cc's and upwards, then you can start to really play around. I got the MS500i, and you can go around from a 20-inch bar up to a 36-inch bar. You can even put a longer bar on it if you even went to a hyper skip chain or a full skip chain. That's one of the good things about the MS500i. It's got the highest power to weight ratio, and it's the lightest saw in its class. So you can play around with a 20-inch bar up to a 36-inch bar without any problem. And same as the MS660, you can do the same sort of thing with that, and that's not a bad weight. But the MS880, that is a big, heavy saw. That's not the type of saw that I want to be lugging around. Great for big milling bars that are in excess or even up to 84 inches. So skip chains, you've got a lot of area for modification as the saw gets bigger and bigger. So yeah, if you're using the 500i or the 660, those two saws there, you've got a lot of playing around to do. And if you've got the MS880, you've even got more playing around that you can do. But certainly for the small saws, it's a total waste of time. So for those people that may have heard of the skip chains, you may not be aware of the hyper skip. And for those that may want to sort of have a look at that, you could get on YouTube, and there's a few videos out there. Just Google hyper skip chain Oregon, because they make one, and there's a few others that are made out there, but it's not the most common thing that's out there. Only specialised people are probably using them, but they're starting to become much more popular now than what they used to. So the Oregon again is 27RX. So, and you can get them in different lengths. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.